Hello, and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today, I'll be showing you how to cycle from Wapping in East London to Limehouse. This ride takes just 12 minutes, and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey takes more like 25 minutes, so cycling is a great way to make this trip. If you find this video useful, or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting at the western end of Wapping High Street by the Hermitage Gardens, and we're going to head east. The first thing you'll notice if you're on a bike is that this street has cobbles. These look really nice and give some sections of this route a nice old worldy feel, which is missing from a lot of other bits of the Docklands, but they're not particularly pleasant to ride over, especially on a road bike like mine, though they might be less annoying with bigger tyres. Fortunately, the street is really quiet at most times thanks to a bus gate which was installed up ahead. You can see it on these signs after the mini roundabout. This covers quite broad hours. I'm usually starting at 5:30 in the morning, which I think is the earliest starting bus gate in the city. It does a good job of removing through traffic from Wapping High Street, and in particular from stopping cars using it to jump the queues on the nearby highway, which is or was apparently a problem at rush hour. If you look at my handlebars just in shot on the left, you can see that my camera's image stabilization is working overtime a bit on the cobbled sections and even rattling my camera mount, so apologies for the slightly dodgy camera work in this section. I personally wouldn't get rid of the cobbles on this street though, as they do look cool. But one way of making it more accessible to bikes would be to copy a treatment that you can actually find elsewhere in the same borough, Tower Hamlets. Columbia Road Flower Market actually has cobbles too, but with a strip of smooth asphalt on the left and right by the curbside, almost like a cycle lane. It still looks good, but it's just less tricky to ride down, and I think it's a good compromise. One thing that you might have to consider when doing that though is restricting on-street parking, as it would go where some cars currently park on this street. I think in London people often think of cycling as a mode of transport best suited for commuter routes into and out of central, and while it is great for that, I do reckon that the kind of route we're doing today is actually even more suited. It's really a sweet spot for distance. If you were to walk this trip, it would take over half an hour, which is doable, but a bit on the long side. But then if you were to turn to public transport, well, it's not that much quicker either. So you get on a bike and it ends up being just a bit over 10 minutes, which is kind of a game changer. If you've not been to Wapping, it is definitely worth a visit. It's one of the few bits of the London Docklands that still has quite an old worldy feel in parts, even if it is mixed in with bits of 1980s redevelopment. The pubs especially are great. There's one coming up on the right here, the Prospect of Whitby, which has a brilliant terrace facing onto the Thames. And there's lots of little curiosities like the little bridges between the old warehouses that we passed under a moment ago, and this swing bridge here, which is kind of a clue to the area's old industrial Docklands heritage. Access by bike could definitely be improved. At the western end where we started, you have to negotiate a pretty horrible junction at Tower Hill, despite Cycleway 3 passing very close by. That definitely deserves a rebuild. At this eastern end, Glamis Road here, which we're on, just about works, but I would suggest rebuilding this junction both on this side and the side we're about to go on to, just so it has protected lanes on the approach, and maybe so it was a little bit less wide open as it is here. Generally though, I've never had too many problems on this street, and it's probably the simplest way to get up to Cycleway 3, which we're just going to turn on to now at this junction. This blue cycle lane which we're turning onto is a little bit old and kind of on the narrow side, but it does do the job and keep you separate from motor traffic, which I think is the important thing. While we're only going to Limehouse today, you can continue down Cycleway 3 in this direction to Canary Wharf, Poplar, and even kind of Barking. Check out my old Barking to Bank video, which used Cycleway 3 to go that far east. One of the easiest ways to browse the videos on this channel is to check out the map of all the different routes, which is linked to in the description below. A viewer called Isaac puts that together, and it's a really nice way of browsing the different videos I've done laid out onto a map so you can see which ones are relevant to the area of London that you're interested in. We're coming to a crossing here that can get a bit crowded at times, but the good news is that it's set to be redesigned and rebuilt. That's thanks to a developer contribution to local infrastructure on account of the rebuilding of the Royal Foundation of St Catherine, which is those buildings on the left. That should be a nice improvement to this route, and thanks to viewer Guy for digging that up and flagging it to me. Do mind the parked cars when you're riding through here, and remember that any of them could move at any moment. But apart from that, you can just continue straight here and you will quickly find yourself at Limehouse Station, which is our destination today and the end of our route. Thank you very much for watching with me today. I hope you find it useful. Do hit subscribe on the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this, and thanks again to everyone on the Patreon for making sure this channel keeps running. If anyone else wants to chip in, then I'll include a link to the Patreon in the description below, where you can also find the map of routes that I talked about earlier in the video. I'm interested in what people think about my cobbles idea. I think it works quite well at Columbia Road, and although Tower Hamlets don't tend to do a lot when it comes to cycling, maybe the fact that you can find the same treatment in their borough elsewhere would count for something. Regular viewers will be pleased to know that I'm hoping that a bit of new infrastructure, probably the first new bit built this year, is going to open in South London later this week. I'm hoping that there's going to be good enough weather for me to get down there and do some filming, and that the works will be finished on time. Do make sure you're subscribed if you'd like to see that. Please let me know in the comments what you think of all that, and I will see some of you below the line and the rest of you next week. Goodbye.